Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Jeffrey Clark was an Assistant Attorney General, a Trump appointee at the Department of Justice. According to multiple sources, Mr. Clark was asked by then President Trump to take over the role of Attorney General, in part so he could issue a series of letters falsely suggesting that the Department of Justice believed the presidential election may have been stolen. Of course, this happened after the department had repeatedly informed President Trump that his allegations of a stolen election were not true and were not supported by the evidence. And this happened after dozens of courts had ruled against President Trump and his election fraud claims. And this happened after the Electoral College certified the results of the election, as our Constitution requires. We are a nation of laws, and our Justice Department has a solemn obligation to truth and justice. Imagine what would have happened if all the Trump-appointed leaders at the Justice Department had supported Clark and had corruptly issued those false letters. Imagine what January 6th would have been then, an even more profound constitutional crisis. But Mr. Clark was not appointed, and his letter was not issued, because a group of honorable public servants, each holding high-level positions in the Department of Justice, understood that they were bound by higher oaths to our Constitution. They did not yield, even to the president who appointed them. They faced down President Trump in the Oval Office and forcefully told him no. They would not allow the Department of Justice to be turned into an arm of President Trump's campaign to overturn the presidential election. These leaders told him they would resign, and virtually all other high-level Trump appointees at the department would resign as well. According to multiple accounts, the president's White House counsel also threatened to resign. Important details regarding all of these events remain unknown. How did this plan with Mr. Clark originate? Who else was involved? How did it progress so far? The American people are entitled to all of these answers, and we need the full story in order to legislate effectively. But so far, Mr. Clark has refused to provide these answers. As the chairman indicated, in the last hour, Mr. Clark's attorney has told us that Mr. Clark would be willing to appear at another deposition and that he plans to assert his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. If Mr. Clark believes that answering questions about his discussions with President Trump and others in November and December of 2020 and January of 2021 could incriminate him, and he therefore wishes to invoke privilege on that basis, the committee would certainly consider that. We will not finalize this contempt process if Mr. Clark genuinely cures his failure to comply with the subpoena this Saturday. It is important to note, however, that Mr. Clark is not excused from testifying simply because President Trump is trying to hide behind inapplicable claims of executive privilege. And of course, Mr. Clark is refusing to answer questions that are not conceivably subject to any executive or other privilege claim. Finally, let me make a larger point as well. President Trump continues to make the same false claims about a stolen election with which he has misled millions of Americans. These are the same claims he knows provoked violence in the past. He has recently suggested that he wants to debate members of this committee. This committee's investigation into the violent assault on our Capitol on January 6th is not a game. When this committee convenes hearings, witnesses will be called to testify under oath. Any communications Mr. Trump has with this committee will be under oath. And if he persists in lying then, he will be accountable under the laws of this great nation and subject to criminal penalties for every false word he speaks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.